tuning in to Text Messages, The Resurrection. I'm Rick Tex, the parasite of the show. And, Richard Tex, I wasn't quite sure to go with Rick or Richard Tex. And, if you look at the birth certificate, yeah, it says Richard Tex, but obviously everybody knows that the short abbreviation of Richard is Rick. So it's just simpler just to stick with Rick Tex, ladies and gentlemen. Now, the parasite of text messages, Resurrection. So, what we wanted to discuss today is, now a lot of people, you probably heard of Alzheimer's and dementia and just assume that maybe you've assumed that it's something that happens with old age. But in all actuality, a lot of it has to do with the chemicals in the food, poor healthy living environments, maybe breathing in dangerous toxins, or if you're exposed to VOCs in the air or high levels of carbon dioxide in enclosed areas for long periods of time. All of them things can contribute to Alzheimer's, which is why it's extremely important to, vet your environment and make sure you pay close attention to what you're eating, drinking, where you're sleeping, what you're sleeping on, the environment you're sleeping in, the environment you're working in, whether your car is emitting dangerous fumes, whether you're living next to a busy road, maybe you got an animal that gives off weird allergies. All those things are very important to consider. Now, what some of the doctors were able to find, well, not doctors, but researchers were able to find out, is that they can actually test people's blood so it can detect brain damage up to 16 years before the symptoms of Alzheimer's. See, what ends up happening is the test looks for changes in neurofilament light chain protein, also known as NFL protein. What that protein does is it resides in your brain cells as part of their internal skeleton. Now, the damaged and dying cells will leak the NFL protein into your cerebral spinal fluid, which will then go into your bloodstream. See, testing your blood it's not an absolute, but it is a good indicator of many things. And for example, like a while back I had an ALCAT test, and it tested for food allergies. Now, yeah, or food intolerance. Now, yeah, the results weren't exactly what I expected, or didn't really seem all that helpful, and in fact, a lot of them are not even accurate or anything like that, which is sort of what I was getting at there. Not quite sure that the accuracy of the test. But the fact is, if you go in a doctor's office, have your blood checked and blood, there was actually a company called Theranos. Apparently they became big fraudsters, and the owner of the company got sued or had to pay a bunch of money, but obviously didn't have to do jail time because it's a white-collar crime, which is not a big deal. So what their whole gist was is you get a vial and you send in your blood, and then they test it for all kinds of potential diseases or some genetic makeup where it would determine if you're going to be susceptible to something or another. Now, if you go online and do a little bit of research and find that there's some companies out there that'll claim they can test your blood or do skin prick tests to see if you're allergic to different foods or you got intolerance to foods and things like that. And blood tests are excellent indicators for specific things. I mean, they can test for your vitamin levels. They can see if you got blood sugar is one. That's probably the biggest one. Anyone who's diabetic knows that knowing your blood sugar is very important, which is basically your pancreas sticking insulin into your blood to keep your blood sugar down. Now, if your blood sugar goes too high, that's an indicator that either your body isn't using the insulin properly or the pancreas is not secreting the insulin properly as well. Now these researchers here were able to determine that if they found these NFL proteins in your bloodstream, that you're at a higher risk because your cells were beginning to die off. Now they used a relative measurement to other quote-unquote healthy people. So I mean, if Big Joe Rosso was pretty healthy and he had a good level of proteins and he wasn't going to be having dementia anytime soon, they could compare his level to somebody else's level who had a higher level, who had more of the NFL proteins, and then 15 years later they started to develop Alzheimer's or dementia. So that's basically what it is. A lot of these research articles that we read, or that I recant on the show, that don't want to say they're very simple, because the process to arrive at their conclusions is very complex and the testing equipment is highly sophisticated and it's not available to any clown on the street. So they are using very sophisticated testing methods to determine if there's NFL proteins in somebody's blood. So I mean, to discount these studies would be rather fallacious because they are very important. Now, does that mean you should go run to the doctor's office and get an Alzheimer's blood test to see if you're susceptible to it? Not necessarily, but I mean, it's just a lot of these things. Yeah, you can get all the blood tests you want, and if they are an indicator of things, food allergies is probably the biggest one because something that's healthy to one person may be vehemently unhealthy to somebody else because they just don't have the gut bacteria to support it. Lactose being one of them. And peanuts is another. Food, eggs, tree nuts, walnuts, pecans, things of that nature. So if you can definitively identify something that doesn't jive with your system, then it's a great idea to make the necessary changes. Now, if you suspect that you're susceptible to Alzheimer's or dementia, it might not be such a bad idea to look into some type of blood testing to see if maybe you're at a higher level than you would hope to be. Then you can convince yourself that you need to make absolute changes to rectify the situation so that you can actually remember your grandkids or your kids' names and things of that nature. See, people don't really have to become deceased just because they're old. I mean, there's this one old lady that played piano at our church back in the good old days. Probably, I don't know, but it was a while back. She was in her mid-90s though and seemed perfectly coherent, fine, and could carry on a conversation with people and actually remembered people's names and had enough respect to call people by their names and remember their names. So, I mean, yeah, is it because she played piano? Maybe, maybe not, but the type of person who does play piano at a church is usually a very motivated person in other facets of their life too, and probably challenges themselves to just achieve things that maybe an ordinary person wouldn't really look into doing. So, I mean, just to maintain good health, yeah, you definitely need to and want to challenge yourself here and there. I mean, sometimes at the end of the day, I'll have massing, throbbing headaches, or a sore knee, or sore feet, or sore hands, whatever the case may be. But it's like, we ask for the challenge. We don't ask for lesser challenge. We ask for greater challenge with the strength to achieve greater challenge. Now, it doesn't have to be some overwhelming experience. It's just, I mean, we got 24 hours in a day. It's just, may as well make the most of it and see what happens. And when you put the hammer down and you run the top groove, a lot more is going to happen, and it makes things a bit more exciting too. And yeah, obviously it's nice to lay down at night and fall asleep for 8 hours, which is very important to get ample amounts of sleep. So with Alzheimer's, estimated 5.5 million people have it in the United States. Some of the symptoms include memory loss, confusion, and capacity to function. See, your brain doesn't just control cognitive thoughts and mathematical or spatial skills. It controls your hands, your feet, your legs, your arms, your torso, your mouth, your nose, your ears, your eyes, your mouth. Everything works through your brain. So if your brain health starts to decline, everything is going to stop working. You're not going to be able to move your fingers as well. You're not going to be able to lift heavy items anymore. You're not going to be able to move your neck back and forth. You're not going to be able to jump around or drive a motor vehicle or a forklift or any of that kind of stuff, which is why it's very critical to keep good brain health. Post-mortem exams of people with Alzheimer's show that they had plaques of beta amyloid protein, tangents of tau protein, or tangles of tau protein, and loss of brain cell connection. And 1/20 of the people with Alzheimer's show signs before the age of 65. So it is a very serious disease. It's definitely not good to know anyone with Alzheimer's because they basically, once people start to lose their memories and start to lose all other bodily functions too, they sort of cease. Yeah, they are still human and you respect them as a human, but as far as recanting or reliving the good old days, it's not really something you can do, and it's a very, very progressive. Some people are more susceptible to it than others, like all things in life. Yeah, some of us might develop dementia at 40 years old even if we try to live a healthy lifestyle. That's just how it goes. Our whole goal is just to minimize casualties. I mean, things aren't always going to be rainbows and ponies. That's basically the gist of the story. But as long as you put a good foot forward, try to make long strides and all that, and then you give yourself a chance to be great again. So that being said, ladies and gentlemen, we thank you a lot for tuning in. We truly appreciate you viewing, and hopefully we're not wasting too much of your time, and hopefully you'll join us again tomorrow night, as looks like we'll be talking about the health of avocados. preferably organic ones. So thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.